Existence is a paradoxical absurdity. Now, why is this so? And is there any way to rectify it? The primary absurdity that gives rise to all subsequent paradoxical absurdities is an empty, whole, non-distinct nothingness, imagining itself as a full, separated, distinct somethingness. This is the mother of all paradox. It can never be fleshed out by man and his tools of reason, logic, and common sense. In fact, it is only because of this initial paradoxical absurdity that such things as man, tools, reason, logic, and common sense have a contextualized manifestation in the first place. And this is why paradox is unresolvable by anything man can think or do. How can man resolve a paradox with an inventory tool, when the source of all things is a non-distinct, ineffable, unlabelable nothingness that produces paradoxical absurdities, something that man and his tools are a direct result of? So paradox is not the result of flawed reason. Here is a paradox that has nothing to do with reason. Opposing forces that by nature clash, yet despite clashing, by nature never overcome each other and exist codependently. So is the fact that hot and cold, polar opposites that clash yet cooperate and exist in the same context, the result of a flawed biosphere? There's balance, right? Contradicting, but existing despite contradicting. The tools of logic and reason are not flawed. They are just limited in utility. The fact that a hammer cannot cut wood doesn't mean that the hammer is flawed. It just means that the hammer is not a be-all and end-all tool. No such tool exists. So trying to use logic, reason, and common sense to resolve paradox is futile. Especially when considering that logic, reason, and common sense themselves are a paradoxical absurdity. For how can there be logic in the illogical, reason in the reasonless, and sense in the senseless? It's not a matter of modifying these tools or figuring out different ways to apply them. For there is no logic, illogic, reason, reasonless, or sense and insensible existing in the first place. Another paradoxical absurdity. For human beings, an ultimate paradoxical absurdity is that humans are creatures that inherently seek to find value, meaning, purpose, and truth, yet are completely incapable of finding any. Oh, you may have values, meanings, purpose, and truth, but you did not find them. They are not existing out there somewhere waiting for you to stumble across them. These are all imagined distinctions that don't have any existence beyond your imagined experience of their existence. And even your imagined experience of their existence doesn't have any existence or non-existence beyond the imagined distinctions of existence or non-existence. This is paradoxical absurdity supreme. Existence and non-existence don't have any existence or non-existence. The only thing that gives an impression of an existence existing is an idea of non-existence. So you think you are existing, so apparently you are not non-existing. So therefore existence doesn't exist, for if existence exists, there needs to be non-existence. If there is non-existence, then existence is just another aspect that doesn't exist. And non-existence doesn't exist either. For if non-existence exists, then it is not non-existence, but yet just another aspect that exists. I know this is hard for many of you to come to grips with. But you need to get over it. You don't have any existence or non-existence. There is no location for you to be existing or non-existing in. If you think otherwise, then please identify your location, and the location of your location, and the location of the location of your location. Are you located in the finite? If so, how? If it is finite, this means it has to have borders. If it has borders, surely there must be something beyond those borders. So it's not really finite. What's that you say? It ends with the borders and there is nothing beyond them? All right, fine, very good. Welcome to nothingness. No? Okay, so are you located in infinity? If so, where? If it is infinity, then this means there are no borders, and if there are no borders, there is no position or location. You are nowhere. Fine, very good. Welcome to nothingness. And I know this is very hard to find comfort in. It's uncomfortable. But you're never going to find any comfort in avoiding the uncomfortable. You might as well get comfortable in the uncomfortable. Because paradoxical absurdity is only uncomfortable when you think it needs to be fixed. If you accept it unconditionally as is, there is no greater comfort. But I guess it's understandable why most people can't do this. It's a reflection separation game. The games of if only this were so, or if only that were not so. The whole I can only be content if something was added or removed, which is absurd in itself. As if wholeness could remove a part of itself from itself, or add a part to itself that was not already itself. So paradoxical absurdity is a main feature of your experience of an existence. The absurdity is not inherent in your character or the external universe separately, but rather because the character and the universe are experienced as coexisting separately, all the while not being separate. So mankind, being a meaning, purpose, and value junkie, will inevitably be confronted by the absurd, because there is no meaning, purpose, or value to be found anywhere in the universe. Mankind doesn't like that. Man wants to seek and find it in some objective state existing independently of him, all part of mankind's desperate attempt to avoid responsibility. So it's a quest doomed for failure, for meaning, purpose, and value are assigned distinctions, not pre-existing aspects waiting to be discovered. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that meaning, value, and purpose were discoverable independently. The quest is still doomed for failure, because man has no way to wrap his mind around the unfathomable vastness. For not only is there the vast unknown, but there's an even vaster expanse of things that are completely unknowable to man. And even the things that are knowable to man could never be cohesively correlated coherently. If you consider the sheer amount of information available, and that man currently has only access to about 0.1%, if even that, the prospect that man could somehow grasp it all into a full perspective is an utter impossible absurdity. And so, therefore, there is no certainty to be had. Some people like to use this as a sticking point, saying, oh, you're just using the unknown and the unknowable and the vast known as a way to avoid some truth or fact that you are uncomfortable with. Nice try. More like you're just using a sliver of the known to establish some fact or truth to make you feel more comfortable. If one is comfortable with uncertainty, there is nothing that can cause uncomfort. It's only when one is uncomfortable with uncertainty that one seeks to take refuge in some chunk of insular knowledge to establish comfort from the uncomfortable. This is basically a distraction to keep oneself busy to elude the absurd. Or, as so many people are inclined, to take refuge in religion and the concept of a god, which is really just a quick fix umbrella to superimpose a narrative on the absurd. A narrative that is just as equally absurd. Or in some cases, people simply want to escape the absurd altogether and commit suicide. So it's either distractions, hide and seek, or escapism. Anything to avoid the absurd. But none of these illusions will bring certainty. So mankind can never be certain about anything, which inevitably confronts man with absurdity. But if man seeks comfort, there is perhaps one thing he can be certain of: the uncomfortable certainty of paradoxical absurdity, which in itself is absurd. For even the uncomfortable certainty of paradoxical absurdity is not certain. And so if you can find comfort in uncertainty, and the uncertain certainty of paradoxical absurdity, then you deserve to be commended. For you will have accomplished the absurd.